Hello, Tesla Cats. This is Tesla-chan, or Lucy if you prefer, and welcome to my very impromptu video of me drawing a Friday Night Funkin' OC. Yes, I know, kinda cringy, but anyway, before we get into the meat and potatoes of the video, however, I would like to apologize in advance for the audio quality. I am just kind of recording this from my tablet. It could come off a lot better, and yeah, I could come up with something a lot better, but just wanted to get this recording out of the way. With that out of the way, let's get into the actual meat and potatoes of this video. So, this character is Opal, and I am one of those weird people that I see mods and I just kind of want one of my own characters to be in one of the mods for Friday Night Funkin'. Even though I have not personally played the game, I have watched gameplays and I like the concept and how fun it is. So, there's that. Now, with that in mind, I created one other Friday Night Funkin' OC, and her name is Echo. And I just kind of felt like she was a bit too OP, putting it bluntly. And admittedly, there are characters that are on Newgrounds that are pretty OP, that are going to be rapping it out with the boyfriend and stuff like that, and a lot of them I don't know a whole lot about, and I literally learned from YouTube, so I apologize if I don't get all the references that are in the game. I just generally enjoy the gameplay and watching just this fun DDR style game. Now, I know there's a lot of other people who've created a lot of other mods with their own lore, so I'm gonna kind of just describe or explain Opal as a character. Now keep in mind, before I get into that, this is more of an analog. This is me analoging some of my own emotions into a character. So anything that might come off as a little bit hard to swallow when listening to me talk about this character, I apologize, that's not the intent. I'm not trying to milk for anything when it comes to certain things, including abuse or anything. I'm just kind of getting my emotions out there and how I feel, like, in the world today. I won't get into what all of that is, but some of it will definitely connect to things like in my past where I've been bullied, how I feel about certain things, how I feel like certain things are kind of forced down my throat, and vice versa, depending on what that is. So, let's explain Opal. Opal is in her 20s, maybe around 18, so basically around the age of boyfriend and girlfriend, yeah. And she has just been really happy to be away from her dad. Now, I think her mom just didn't know how to stop the stuff going on in her life, and was too afraid to because her dad had threatened her mom multiple times and hurt her. So her mom didn't exactly defend her, and Opal would often argue with her father on where she wanted to take her life. The idea that I have for Opal's father is that Opal's father is a criminal of sorts, and he's wanted her to join the gang or the mob that he's been working for several years. And when she decided, anytime she told him she wasn't going to, he would yell at her, he would beat her, and thus how she ended up with being blind in one eye. Joy. Now, I am going to double take this by saying part of this is, like, the blind in one eye thing, it does connect to a real life event. Not with me personally, like, not as a physical direct to me, but more as a direct to one of my other family members who I live with on a daily basis. So, there's that, and I know I'm going to be going on a lot of side tangents, I apologize. Anyway, so Opal has thought when she moved out to go to college that she would have gotten away from this stuff, and that she could stay away from this stuff, and her mom died of her injuries from one of her dad's abusive tirades towards her mom, so she didn't really have her mom by a certain point in her life. So Opal had to stick it out and try to figure things out for herself. And so this has made Opal very self-conscious about herself and about telling other people about what's going on, because anytime she's tried to tell somebody about what's going on or has told somebody about what's going on in her life, they often get hurt by her father and the mob that he works for. So she has been very closed off towards people. She doesn't really talk about her past. She doesn't talk about why she can't see out of one eye and stuff like that. So bringing it to where my ideas for this mod for this character would come in, the idea that I have had for this mod and for the storyline with her is that boyfriend and girlfriend are walking by, because, you know, in most of these mods, that's just the usual thing. And they see her get beaten up by a bunch of thugs and see her just barely, see her pick herself up off the ground. And they don't approach right away because they're like, wait a minute, what's going on? Hold up. And the only reason they end up approaching the situation is because they see what's happening towards the back end of the situation. So they kind of are like, whoa, are you okay? Hold up, what's going on? Are you alright? You know, and she's like, no, I'm fine, don't worry about me, I'm good. And they don't believe her, so he's like, okay, fine. Well, if we're not going to get into this stuff, let's introduce ourselves, because you obviously have had a rough day. I don't know if you like to sing or not, but we could do introductions through a rap battle. And she's like, odd request, but I'll allow it, kind of thing. Like, she's uber shy, and she's like, look, I'm not that good at singing, so don't expect any perfection out of this whole situation, but sure, okay, kind of thing. Just being awkward bean. And so that leads into the song that is called My Name's Opal, or Opal. And obviously I feel like it'd be like it'd start off a little bit slower, but also be very vibey and lighthearted in its tones. And then she would be like, well, thank you for worrying about me, BF and GF, I'll be fine. And they're like, you have a bandage on your cheek, and you have some new injuries on your other cheek. Come on, tell us what's going on. She's like, no. And he's like, fine. I'll tell you my history in the song if you tell me a little bit about yourself. You don't have to go into detail. Just tell me a little bit about yourself. And she's like, she kind of just fights with it a little bit, and he's like, come on, no one's going to hurt you, I promise. And like in the back of her head, she's like, that's not what I'm worried about. And then the rap battle begins, and the song History plays. And obviously the player would be playing the song. And eventually at the end of that, you would actually have like this conversation about what had been going on in her family life, what happened to her mom, how she thought she'd escaped. And the thugs would come back, one of them being the person who did a lot of the extra disciplinary action when her dad couldn't. And he'd be like, Opal, you should know better than to talk to people. And she just like freaks out. And basically, boyfriend, being the fearless idiot that he is, he's like, look, if I can beat you in a rap battle, you have to leave her alone. And he's like, nah, I don't think so. And he kind of threatens girlfriend and boyfriend. And girlfriend is like, I am too close to people, to Opal, and to people who could potentially get really hurt that I care about, that I don't want to risk using my powers. I mean, I could, but I don't want to risk it. So she doesn't end up using her powers. And Opal's like, throughout this whole conversation, hasn't been allowed to talk. She's been trying to speak up like, hey, no, we were just talking, and it's not a big deal, honestly, none of that, I didn't actually tell him anything, ha ha ha. But when she sees them getting threatened, it's like you kind of see this whole flip side to Opal. And the song Quiet Ones plays. And she's like, but what leads up to that song is she's like, let them go. And they're like, what? Let them go. Like, getting mad. Obviously kind of becoming terrifying to these guys because they've never seen her act like this. And they're like, oh, and what are you going to do about it, Opal? And she's like, if you won't rap with him, fine. But rap with me instead. Sing with me instead. If I win, you'll let them go. And they're like, ooh, okay, fine, you know. And during the song, obviously the guy who had been kind of torturing her outside of her dad her whole life, like, has a weapon on him the entire time. And she just kind of sings, like, the song is called Quiet Ones because the idea is that the quiet ones are always the scariest when they get mad, and I think that's actually relatively true. I think I can kind of freak people out because of my personality, not because I'm always quiet, but because when I'm in situations where I'm doing specific things, working my day job and vice versa, I tend to be more quiet and nice and just seem like I could be a bit of a pushover. And to an extent, I could say that I kind of am a bit of a pushover. Anyway, but that's just how I feel about myself, so I digress. So she basically ends up getting these guys to let boyfriend and girlfriend go, and they take one pot shot at both of them, and she manages to actually just go for it, quote unquote go for the jugular, knock these guys down. And because they're so freaked out that this girl who's normally terrified of them literally just flat out attacked them out of nowhere, that they run off, and she just apologizes repeatedly to them, like, no, it's not your fault, whoa, hold up, that was awesome. She's like, it wasn't that awesome. And they're like, yes it was, and you're a good singer and you're cool, hang out with us. And like by the end of the mod, like, she's like hanging out with them and basically has made a couple of friends, and they're like, hey, if you ever need help, and like girlfriend is basically like, hey, I wouldn't normally offer this because my dad's kind of a horrible person, but if you ever need help, I can put in a word for you and have him protect you. And she's like, I don't want to trouble. And she's like, no biggie. And, you know, yeah, that whole thing plays out. And so, in the end, the mod ends off on a high note. So those are my basic ideas. Obviously, it would have to be a bit more structured. It wouldn't necessarily have to be, but I digress. It'd have to be a bit more structured. The storyline would have to make a bit more sense and stuff like that. Now, I am going to briefly kind of talk about where some of the traits for Opal come from, like her being really timid and stuff like that. And then I'm going to kind of get into what I think her voice would sound like. So I know I'm rambling a lot, and there's no script, so I apologize for this ramble fest. And I will admit, it's a ramble fest. Okay, so the traits, or like, I guess you could say the analogy type stuff for this character is obviously the blindness in one eye ties to, like I said, a family member that has lost vision in one of his eyes in my family, and he's someone I'm really close to. I live with him in the same house, so that's a whole thing. The whole kind of not wanting to tell anybody what's going on in my life. Not wanting to tell anyone what's going on in my life just comes from me not really trusting people too much because of being bullied. And not really wanting to let people in because I don't want to get hurt, I guess you could say. The not feeling good enough or not feeling like I'm pretty kind of comes from the same vein and kind of things I've kind of told myself over time. And the whole abusive dad thing is me kind of analoging all of the points of like my negative mental attacks to myself and bullies from my past and other things into one lump, and like the whole like criminal family type thing fits into that same vein. So there's that. I literally just unpacked a lot, so I apologize if this kind of comes off as a bit of a heavy-handed video. I'm not trying to make it heavy-handed. Anyway. So, final note here is just kind of me giving a vague idea of what I think her voice would sound like. If you guys think you have a better voice sound for her, I'm more than open to that. This is kind of me reaching out, like if you're interested in working together. I'm not saying we have to, or that this has to become a mod, but it would be cool if it did. Because I couldn't mod to save my life. I do not know how to. I couldn't write actual music to save my life because I don't know how to. I'm good at writing stories and coming up with characters and designs, and that's about it. So, yeah. And I don't feel like my voice is the best for voiceover, so, you know, yay me. But I digress. Time to kind of get into what her voice is like, and then I'll leave this video off here with some final notes, and yeah, that's it. So, I imagine her singing voice, because that would be kind of one of the big things, is like you're hearing her singing voice throughout the mod, and whether or not we had voiceover for the mod otherwise is a side point. But oh gosh, I'm gonna feel so embarrassed listening to myself ramble this entire time. And then finally just doing this. Okay, singing voice. Yeah. Let's do it! Woo! I think for the first song it'd be more like because she's just very timid and just kind of be more that softer tone. And then when she starts to really trust them and starts to kind of, or rather it wouldn't necessarily be when she starts to trust them, it'd be more like the last song would be like the high point. There wouldn't really be a midpoint. She'd still be really timid. Maybe there'd be a few higher notes like and then for the last song it'd be more like obviously probably a little bit louder, trying to portray the emotions for each song. Sorry, because and I feel like this is gonna sound so garbage. I'm sorry. So the final thing would be what I think her voice sounds like outside singing. So I feel like it would obviously initially would be more like, look, I'm not that good, and honestly, you really don't have to worry about me. I'll be fine. You know, kind of just this really timid, soft-spoken person, and then, like, when she is faced with having to basically look out for somebody else that she cares about, it would be more like, knock it off! They didn't ask for anything big, they just wanted you to rap with them. And they don't need to get involved in this. If you don't want to face them, that's fine. But you're going to face me in a rap battle, and you're going to release them if I win. And just being very, like, hard all of a sudden, just on top of it. So, yeah. As for final notes, thank you for watching this ramble fest and me being a complete idiot for goodness knows how long, because I don't know how long I've been recording this. I know I'm well past the point of where the video is currently stopping in my iMovie, but I digress. Thank you for dealing with my crap and me just go in circles. Remember to keep on keeping on, and if you're interested in trying to help me create a mod or working with me, as it were, and stuff like that, feel free to reach out. I won't necessarily have my email on the screen. Maybe I'll put it in the comments, the email that I want you to reach out to, because, yeah. And, yeah, that's about it. Remember to keep on keeping on, and I'll see you Tesla Cats in the next one. Bye-bye!